my friends, and welcome once again to Armour Up, 12 heroic women in the Bible. I am your lovely host, Erica, and today we're going to continue with our study of women of wisdom as we talk about the wise woman of Abel. Y'all, this lady right here is one of my favorite characters in the Bible. I love her so dearly, and you're about to find out why. What? So, once again, if you would like to have a study guide to go along with this Bible study, you can purchase it from Amazon.com. The link is in the description. In the meantime, let's get started. Alright, so first let's start with a little bit of context or background before we get to our main event story, right? This is after King David's son Absalom has tried to usurp the throne from David, like his big rebellion, okay? And so when you open up chapter 20, we immediately go into the scene where the people are fighting over King David. So finally this one dude shows up named Sheba, and so he convinces the people of Israel to not follow David, but to follow him. So all of Israel stops following David and decided to go behind Sheba, while the people of Judah have remained faithful to David. Of course, this poses a huge threat to David and his reign. He gets Joab to pretty much take care of this situation. So Joab and his men are going to go and hunt down Sheba. On their way to finding Sheba, they come across Amasa or Amasa, one of those, it doesn't really matter. But anyway, who, by the way, sidebar here, but Amasa is the one that Absalom was actually going to put in Joab's place, you know, when he was planning to take over things, right? So on the way, Joab murders Amasa, you know, because that's what Joab does, murders people. But anyway, so he murders him and they continue on to their journey. They arrive to Abel. In order to get a hold of Sheba, they are basically trying to tear up some stuff. So they're over there, you know, like cities have the big walls that's surrounding them, and they're basically just trying to tear down the wall in order to get a hold of Sheba, who apparently is finding refuge on the inside. So there is our story set up. Now we have this wise woman who appears, right? She appears, and the first thing she does is she asks for Joab. It's like one of those things like, tell Joab, come here, I need to talk with him. This is interesting to me because I'm under the assumption that she already knows who Joab is since she asked for him by name, okay? So that's one. Well, considering that she asked for him by name, then she must know this man's reputation. Now, I want you to understand, just in case you don't, Joab's reputation, okay? So first of all, he is the nephew of King David, and he's also the captain of King David's army, but he is very ruthless, okay? It doesn't take much for Joab to like straight up murder somebody. Like he's got bloody hands. He really does. I've always considered him to just be ruthless, okay? And I think it's very bold and brave considering his character that this wise woman was like, whatever. Tell Joab, come here, let me talk to him. I love her already. So Joab approaches her and she's like, are you Joab? And he's like, yes, I am. And she's like, look here, baby, let me tell you something. That's my version of it. She proceeds to tell him about how Abel is the place where the people would come to settle arguments or settle disagreements. And the thing about this is that you can really kind of see it twofold, because it's almost like, hey, you obviously have a problem as you're coming up in here tearing up stuff. You obviously got a dispute with something, someone on this side. Let it end here, right? So that's one way to look at it. And the second way to look at it is like, look, this is a place of peace. This is where we settle our arguments. This is the place where we do that. And what are you doing? You in here trying to tear that up? She then describes herself as one of the faithful and peaceful in Israel. In verse 19, she says, I am of those who are peaceful and faithful in Israel. You are seeking to destroy a city, even a mother in Israel. Why would you swallow up the inheritance of the Lord? So a couple of things I really want you to look at. One is when she says mother in Israel. And when I first read it, I was like, are you talking about you being a mother of Israel? Or are you talking about like the city of Abel being the mother of Israel? And in actuality, I think you can see it both ways. Because considering her position, I mean, obviously she's a very wise woman. Considering her position, I can kind of see her as being a motherly type, whether it's she has kids of her own or whether she's just motherly as in she's the one who kind of takes after the people that live within her city. And secondly, she could be talking about the city of Abel being that motherly position in Israel. Because that's one of the things that moms do, right? We settle arguments amongst the children, you know, when you have more than one. But if you got like 2, 3, 4 kids or whatever, and kids get the disputing and the arguing and the fighting, who comes in there and settles everything? Mom does, right? So I can kind of see it being either way. Either she could be the mother or the city of Abel could be that mother. But either way, she's like, hey, are you trying to destroy the mother in Israel, right? So even though you can see it in a couple of ways, more than likely she's just talking about the city itself. Because right before it, she says, to destroy a city, even a mother in Israel. So, I mean, either way. I think it works either way. But more than likely it's the city, just in case. And then she says, why would you swallow up the inheritance of the Lord? And then my first thought when I read this is like, what exactly is the inheritance of the Lord? The inheritance of the Lord, of course, would be the people of Israel, right? So then Joab's response is really fascinating to me because he seems so very, you know, humble right now. It kind of reminds me of like when you have a kid and the kid is acting crazy and you come and you talk to them and they're like, oh, no, that's not what I was trying to do. Like it's a complete attitude change. And that's kind of what I feel like Joab has got right now. Like it was an attitude change. First it was like, oh, we're tearing down the walls. And the next thing is like, no, I'm not trying to destroy. Well, what are you trying to do? That would be my question. What are you trying to do? You're tearing up the walls. What am I supposed to think? Right? But that's just me. Joab then explains to this woman what's going on about Sheba and his whole revolt. And he's like, hey, listen, just turn him over to us. We'll be on our way. It's all good, right? Right. So here's where it gets really interesting. And this is when you really get an understanding about what time this is all happening in. Our response is, behold, I will throw his head over the wall. Throw his head over the wall? Right? Like, who says that, right? But that's just the time they were living in. If somebody said that now, that would be in a matter to take up with the police or the FBI or something. But homegirl said, we're going to throw his head over the wall. Like, that just, wow. And that's what she did. Like, all the people came together. Guess they found Sheba, cut off his head, and threw it over the wall. And therefore there was peace. And Joab and his men went riding off into like the sunset or whatever, right? Right. This woman is a hero. She just made a huge intercession on behalf of her people, and she was able to keep her city from being destroyed and possibly saving the lives of many. Because Joab, as we know, is the ruthless one. There's no telling what he would have done had they gotten those walls torn down and started going on a rampage in there, because you know he's a rule violator, right? So let's look Deuteronomy. Let's look at chapter. Let's look at Deuteronomy 20 and 10. When you approach the city to fight against it, you shall offer it terms of peace. And as we can see, that is not what Joab did. He came to the city. It doesn't say anything about going up in there and just tearing down the people's walls and trying to bust up in there. That's not what it says. So like I said, Joab, he's a rule violator. And bless this woman's heart that she had the guts to stand up and be like, come here, baby. Let me talk to you for a minute. Why are you trying to destroy this city or destroy a mother in Israel? Like, why are you trying to swallow up the inheritance of the Lord? This is interesting. It's the same... her tactics are the same as the way Jesus does things, or even the way Yahweh does things, the way God does things in the garden. She didn't come out and just start accusing him and making all these accusations. She came out asking questions. You know what I'm saying? Notice that when you look in Genesis, like when the Lord comes out after Adam and Eve have eaten from the forbidden tree, he didn't come out and say, you did this, you did that, you did that. He came out and he just simply asked the right questions, right? He asked, hey, did you eat? What did you do? And it's the same thing with Jesus. Like, you noticed he does that a lot with the Pharisees and stuff. He'll simply ask them questions, and he asks the right questions. Do you see what I'm saying? And I think it works really well, because if she came out just then I don't think we would have had the same ending. But because she just came out and she asked the right questions, you know what? We had a very nice, settled little discussion, and it was resolved without anybody being harmed, with the exception of Sheba's head being thrown over the wall. Another thing that we can also learn from her is that whenever we see something, or whenever we see a person or people doing something that's clearly wrong, let's not be in fear to stand up and say, you know what, that's wrong. Unfortunately, that's one of the things that's happening in the body of Christ right now, right? As we have people in leadership, in high leadership, who are really doing the wrong things. Not all of them, but it's quite a bit, whether it's they're preaching things that, aren't biblical. They're doing things in worship that aren't biblical. For an example, I saw the one church that had a, what is it called? It was a worship service, but it was a Harry Potter worship service. So where are those people who can stand up and say, excuse me, come here, Pastor, let me talk to you for a minute. You know what I'm saying? Someone who can stand up and say, okay, look, this is not right. This is not what should be happening, right? And she had the guts to do that. So when it's in your power to actually stand up and tell somebody that they're wrong, you can do that. But you don't come out making accusations. Come out, just ask the right questions. Right? Fear no man but God. Because here's the thing about the wise woman of Abel. There was plenty of reasons for her not to approach Joab, okay? This man, like I said, he's crazy. Despite Joab's reputation of him being a murdering, ruthless captain, okay? Despite all of that, this woman was still able to go confront him. Well, that concludes our study of the wise woman of Abel. I hope you learned something. I know I did. I will see you at our next session as we talk about the prophetess Huldah. So, until next time, my friends.
And chosen hearts of mankind, not constrained by time. Self-sufficient, demonstrating his power. No need to eat nor sleep, not even 1 hour. Will never be obsolete. The throne is his seat. It can't be taken from him, cause who can even compete?